Mel Kiper just released his top 25 big board, so best believe we gotta go take a look at that sucker. What's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. As always, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you want to know my top 200 big board or my full prospect rankings, I update them throughout the year and you can see it in real time. Check out the Patreon. The link's in the description below, but we're going to go ahead take a look at this on ESPN.com. He's got his top 10 for each position, but you know what? If you got ESPN Plus, you can check that out. I'm gonna just go through his top 25, starting with we gotta go over some things first. First two notes. There's a lot of projection in this and every big board, whatever. And he says heights and weights are based on what we have from the school, like everyone else. So this was unneeded. Okay, so his top prospect here is Will Anderson. And for a lot of people, he is the top non-quarterback prospect in this class. Some people really like Jalen Carter from Georgia, which that's reasonable. Anderson, he's been better after starting the year in a bit of a slump. He's been more disruptive. Even in the game where he had like 3 or 4 penalties against Texas, he was pretty disruptive. I think he had like 3 or 4 pressures in that game. But yeah, no, Will Anderson, I believe it. CJ Stroud is the top quarterback prospect on his rankings. No surprise. He's got an NFL arm. He has a ideal size for the position. If some of y'all have Stroud as your top guy over like Bryce Young, I'm absolute mark for Bryce Young, then it's understandable. They're for the most part, like everybody's top 4 prospects in this are Young, Stroud, Williams, and Anderson and Carter. So I'm expecting to see Jalen Carter here's Jalen Carter, so I'm assuming Bryce Young is at least top 5. So Jalen Carter, he's been a little banged up this year. Through 3 games, only 48 snaps. By the way, this is before this weekend in college football. So if there are some questionable spots based on what you saw this previous weekend, he did this going into the weekend. But yeah, Carter's really good, man. Really good. His quarterback prospect is Will Levis. Listen, for me, Will Levis, there's some question marks. There are. He needs to get it together as a decision maker, and I feel like how he's processed in the field is more like the beginning of 2021 than it was at the tail end of 2021, where he was really on a roll. So for me, Will Levis, also being a bit of an older prospect in this class, I think he's more outside the top 20 for me right now. Probably sneaks into that first round talk, but for me, he is firmly out of the top 20. Number 5, Brian Brazee. Whoa, that's kind of legit. Dude's been really good this season, like really good. So, hey, if you view him as such, I think he's top 10 as well. He's been really good. This is a very good interior class. I expect to see a couple of other names from this interior class on here. But yeah, Brian Brazee should not surprise anybody. And then here we go. At number 6, we got Bryce Young. Man, Bryce Young, listen, he operates that pocket like Mahomes. The thing is with him, it's just like height. Height's going to be the biggest issue. I think no quarterback attacks the middle of the field like Bryce Young in college football. For me, that makes him the top prospect, but I understand there are going to be real concerns about the height. A lot of people have him as 5'10", 5'11", rather than 5 or 6 foot. Ooh, number 7. Oh my goodness, we got Bijan. Bijan is hands down the best running back prospect in this class. Easy, super easy. But running back in the top 10, I mean, I could see this from like I still think you take position value into account when you compile a top 10 big board. Or a top 25, or a big board in general. But yeah, no, Bijan's far and away the best running back in this class. Like, easy. This is a guy that can operate out of the slot. He's so good in close quarters. Big fan of Bijan. Very unfortunate fumble this past weekend, but the guy never coughs up the football. Man, I need a I need to lather up the throats with some high quality H2O. Number 8, his first tackle off the board is Paris Johnson. Paris Johnson's been very good this year. I think Peter Skoronski, which actually, let's get into it. I just noticed this. Number 9 is Peter Skoronski for Mel Kiper. I think Peter Skoronski has been the best tackle, best offensive lineman in college football. Paris Johnson's not far. He's got more ideal length and size and athleticism. That's the thing with Skoronski. You look at him and it's like, he's probably built more for the interior. He was recruited as a center prospect, had to play because Rashawn Slater opted out. So he was called into action early, had a banger freshman year. He's been great since. Great year. Like Peter Skoronski, I think, is easy a top 15 prospect. Dude's amazing. So, and Paris Johnson, straight up, might be the best human being on the planet. All right. Here's Jordan Addison, our first wide receiver on the list. Hello. He's been good. He has been the go-to target for Caleb Williams. Caught the crunch time touchdown against Oregon State this past weekend. Guy's just been so good, and especially in this wide receiver class where it's just kind of lackluster right now. For a lot of the guys we anticipated to be at the top, like JSN's been hurt. Boutte just has it's been a roller coaster at LSU thus far this year. No one's really emerging as a top wide receiver prospect outside of Addison. Number 11 is Andre Carter. A bit of projection going here. I still kind of lean Miles Murphy. Miles Murphy did have a much better put-together game this past weekend against Wake Forest, where he had, I think, a sack and 4 pressures. Andre Carter, he's got get this guy in an NFL weight room, and then because he's got the tools, he's got the length, he's got the burst, he's got the explosiveness. There's going to be some questions about his service time being in the military, but we've seen prospects that were considered firmly day three, late day 3 prospects be able to work around that. I imagine we can do something like that will happen with Carter. And then JSN, he's just been banged up. He's been hurt. Didn't even play this weekend, I believe. And if he did, he wasn't targeted. He wasn't a part of the target count there at Ohio State. But you know what you're getting. You're getting if the best slot player in all of college football. The dude's so good, and we know how valuable that has been in the NFL with a guy like Cooper Kupp. And then Keyshawn Boutte is the other wide receiver here. We know the dude's good after the catch, man. He's really good after the catch. It looks like the explosiveness he has retained. Just haven't seen much from him this year. Doesn't have many catches. Hasn't been a focal point of the offense. Still waiting. Hopefully that does change. It does turn around, but yeah, like it's really hard to come off of Boutte based on his what he's done prior to this season. And I'm just glad he's still playing there at LSU. That after that Florida State game, I literally thought he was going to opt out for the season, which would have killed his first round buzz. And then 14, Drew Sanders. Listen, I like Drew Sanders a lot. And in a linebacker class where no one's really emerged outside of Trenton Simpson, I don't think there's a guy that's like worth a day 1 pick. Drew Sanders, like he's been good, especially as a pass rusher, rushing from a more traditional linebacker position, but still the missed tackle rate is so high. I think this past week against Texas A&M, he missed 30% of his tackles, which is just ludicrous. It's ludicrous. It's something he needs to work on. I think you could talk about him in the day 2 right now, but 14 is ambitious. There is a lot of projecting going on there. At number 15, Anthony Richardson. Listen, this dude's got the tools. He's got the arm. He's an unbelievable athlete with his feet. And he looked a lot better this week against Tennessee. But I think you still got to put him in the top 15, top 20 just because of those physical skills, those tools. But you do want to see him be a bit more together as a passer as the year goes on. He's a full-time starter, so I expect him to get better, because for me a lot of the times he was late on passes, but legit like accuracy issues have arisen. So yeah, Michael Mayer, top tight end in the class, probably, yeah, especially with My boy Eric Gilbert not really emerging. That's kind of a sad panda, but it is what it is. Michael Mayer might not have oh, this guy's generational in terms of an athlete for the tight end position, but this dude's a very good run blocker. He's a consistent chain mover, very good hands, and he can create after the catch in terms of he's just hard to bring down. Had a good game against North Carolina this past week too. Number 17, we got Joey Porter. Knew this guy. He's a hot riser. He's got that NFL length. He's got size. Very good athlete. A bit handsy, but I think the other guy that's emerging in this conversation of cornerback 2 is Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon, the Colorado transfer. Dude's been wonderful this year as well. Sticky man coverage. So if we're talking about cornerback 2, wow, we haven't even got to Keely Ringo. Yo, hold the freaking phone, yo. For real? That's wild. I expect to see him close. Why are people low on Ringo? All right, 18, Myles Murphy. I absolutely loved Murphy coming into the process. The production hasn't really been there this season thus far. But again, this past game, he was real hot. I'm hoping that's something that's going to be going forward because it is kind of after Will Anderson. Myles Murphy is kind of the next name because just from he's a physical specimen. So he's the next guy you want to talk about. But the production needs to be there. It has been there the prior 2 seasons. This year, and not so much. But again, it looks like that's trending up after the Wake Forest game. Wow. Cornerback 2 is actually Cam Smith for Mel. And actually, let's get into 20 because that's actually Keely Ringo. Listen, Ringo for me, he's cornerback 1 far and away. Cam Smith's been good, but he didn't play the Georgia game because of a concussion. I don't know if he played this weekend. I don't know if even South Carolina played. I'm not positive. So we haven't seen much from Smith yet this year, but the dude's a good athlete, got an ideal build, ideal length, ideal frame. Ringo's just a wonderful athlete, should be cornerback 1. I think that's kind of ludicrous. Who's 21? We're flying by this video. Let's we'll look at some of his top 10 rankings for each position. Tyler Van Dyke. This was before the Middle Tennessee game. Listen, at this point, Van Dyke's returning for next year. It's been rough sledding. Receivers have let him down constantly, but the accuracy has been an issue this year thus far. So Tyler Van Dyke, I'm still hyped. I just think he ends up staying. A guy that's still trying to understand how to go through progressions in the new offense, and that's just been timing's been all off. Could use a little more touch on some of his balls. Pause. But yeah, it's just been unfortunate for Van Dyke. I will do a position ranking video probably after week 7, like a mid-season positional ranking. So be on the look for that. That'll be out in the next month. All right, let's see who 22 is. It's Isaiah Foskey. Yo, listen, I've been saying Foskey's probably got the highest ceiling or highest floor of a lot of these edge rushers that are trying to vie for that next tier of edge rushers. The production hasn't really been there. Didn't see how he did against North Carolina, but coming off a Cal where he had a sack and a half, he had 8 pressures. Very good game for him, but it was kind of the same theme coming into the season. We needed to see more production out of him, and it just hasn't been there yet. Hopefully, he's kind of turned up a new leaf, but we could pause the video real quick while I look up what he did this past weekend, at least by PFF. They're pretty good with their analytics. So let's see how he did against North Carolina, because they were up in that game real early. They ran through North Carolina. All right, Foskey looks like he was productive. It looks like he had 2 sacks in that game. He had a sack in that game, but 6 pressures, so he was very productive as a pass rusher. So yeah, it's starting to come together. It's still looking more like last season, similar production, but kind of is what it is. Who's next on the list at 23? It's Toli Toi Piloto. He's been very good. He's more of this like 3-4 end type of prospect. Even if you're a 4-3 team and get him, you're probably going to be using him on the interior. Good movement skills at that size. You would like to see a bit more physicality to him, but he's very productive as a pass rusher. It really is. Really good. 24 is Dayon Henley out of Washington State. I talk about him. I'll actually be talking about him tomorrow in my stock report video. I just need to call it stock report. But dude's a former wide receiver from Nevada, made the transition to linebacker from like 2019 to 2020, and Washington State's been like, we knew the guy's coverage prowess because former receiver, ball skills are kind of nuts. Like last year at Nevada had 4 interceptions. He already has an interception this season. So we know the coverage prowess is there, but Washington State's been able to use him also as a blitzer. So I like them adding that to the repertoire. Didn't really see that in the Oregon game, and I'll talk about that tomorrow a bit more, but definitely a linebacker that's emerging in this class. I would say more so than a guy than Drew Sanders, who has the missed tackle problem. And then 25 is Jalen Duncan. Jalen Duncan had actually a pretty interesting game against, who was it? Michigan. I misspelled his name. Jalen. There we go. Let's see how he did against Michigan. Oh, I have it under defense. Let's check out your just block it in general. Oh, looked like it was a bit up and down against Michigan. 4 pressures and a sack. No penalties, though. Penalties have been kind of the Achilles heel for him. At least there were last year. He was flagged 10 times last year. But, yeah, didn't have a great game against Michigan. And keep in mind, this was before this past weekend. And a lot of people were pretty high on Duncan, but I feel he's firmly a day 2 guy right now. Shoot, we got oodles of time in the video. Let's check out the QB prospects real quick. So his top 10 QB prospects are this. So Stroud, Young. So for me, those are unanimous too. Based on DJU's performance this past week and just this whole year, he's been really good. I think you're gonna talk about him in the QB3 discussion with Anthony Richardson. You got Tanner McKee, I think is kind of like him, and Will Levis are like that QB5, QB6. Cameron Ward, I still think is getting acclimated to just having to play at a high level against high-end competition. I think he probably returns. Hendon Hooker's definitely going to get some talk now, probably more so in that late day 2, early day 3 area. Same with Jaron Hall, though Hooker's got a much better skill set. Aiden O'Connell's kind of been problematic this year. Don't see Van Dyke coming out. So that's like chucking 2 guys off this list, because again, he talks about projection, but just based on what we've seen through 4 weeks, that's what I would say. Those guys aren't coming out as of right now. Let's do running backs, dude. I'm feeling zesty. And running back's such a good class. All right, so Bijan, unanimous number 1. There's no one else to talk about. I really think Sean Tucker, he's been a bit slow going. A lot of that's been on the offensive line for Syracuse. Gibbs is good, but good as his receiving upside. As a runner, I mean, I think you can make a case between Gibbs and Tucker. Evans didn't play in the second half against Tulsa this past weekend, and this season's been about bit up and down. Eric Gray, I think, is in the discussion. I'm not a big Travis Dye fan. Charbonnet's kind of tough sell. Really should have came out last year. Chase Brown's been really good. I think he's kind of a day 3 guy, though. And then A-Chain, he's a speedster. What do you expect? Dwayne McBride, big bruiser. Big fan. What are some other guys we could discuss here? I'm going to talk about Trey Benson tomorrow. Tank Bigsby's been really good, though it's not like that Auburn offensive line is just god awful. Who else? It's really no one jumping into my mind. Come on, jump. It's such a good class. I mean, Kenny McIntosh, but he's kind of in the same boat as Gibbs. Yeah. So he's got his fullbacks here. Everyone really loves this kid from North Dakota State. I haven't really watched him myself, so I couldn't tell you much. I'm curious about the wide receivers. So this is the guy I'm looking. Rashee Rice has been amazing this year. Like, this dude's good. Josh Downs, I think, just returned last week and had 2 touchdowns, but he's doing nothing after the catch. Like, honestly, Mims has been better in terms of who's an undersized receiver that are likely going to work out in the slot. Not a big fan of Zay Flowers. I've talked about him on the channel before. Tillman was actually out this past game. Didn't mean anything for Hooker. He still did Hooker things. Sounds weird, Hooker things. Yeah, this receiving class is kind of a mess. Kind of is. But that's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing. It's always a ton of fun looking at other people's perspectives. If you have ESPN Plus, you can check out the rest of his top 10. And okay, hold the phone. While we're here, I'm just going to scroll down real fast. I want to go take a look at his corners. Okay. Because he's got Christian Gonzalez number 7. Yo, shoot that guy up a lot. Riley Moss? I don't know about that. Who's in here? Who's not in here? Who should be being talked about? DJ Turner is a name that comes to mind. Definitely a guy that needs to be discussed in this definitely day 2, maybe even day 1 conversation. Another guy that's very good at man coverage. Let's see. Yeah, basically, I feel like the North Carolina corners are kind of out of the conversation right now. They've just been pretty bad this year. I think Storm Duck has allowed the most touchdowns in college football with 5. Pretty unfortunate. Let's see. I'm trying to roll through it right now in my head to like teams that might have good corners. Like, there's this Texas Tech cat that I want to go back and watch, but he had a really good game this past week. I want to say it's like Dunlap, but that's not it. It's like Malik something. But I'm kind of curious about him. I think he's an older prospect as well, or at least a guy that's like in his 5th year, something like that. I think he's transferred as well. But yeah, anyway, that's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing. As always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.